the participants go to the temple. This is the ritual. What is the significance behind the ritual is the kund, Havan kund, represents the ideal for which you are working. The ahuti is the talent which you offer as sacrifice towards that ideal. When you offer your talent towards a higher ideal, what happens is the profits are enhanced of that, in other words, that unit does well. Ash distributed, profits are shared. And when the ash that you get, the result of your sacrifice, is applied in 3 stripes on your forehead, means the transcendence of the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And when you go to the temple, you see the idol in the sanctum sanctorum. It represents the state of realization. So yajnaya acharatah, when you perform actions, sacrificial actions to a higher ideal, you're well on your way to realization. Then he says, all your action gets dissolved because the performance of the action does not create further vasanas in your system. Verse 24.
Brahmarpanam brahmahavihi brahmagnau brahmanahutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina.
In essence, in truth, the fire is Brahman. The person who's offering is also Brahman. What is being offered? The ahuti is also Brahman. The result of that sacrifice is also Brahman. Everything is Brahman. So he says, Brahman shall be obtained. If you have this perception that everything is Brahman, then you will reach Brahman if you see Brahman alone in action. So this verse is a very important verse, very often chanted prior to meals. Before, you know, in the Indian custom, every action is preceded by a prayer. So whether you're going to work, I'm sure you've seen shopkeepers. When they open shop, first they do namaskar and then enter the shop. When you eat a meal, you're supposed to say a prayer before eating the meal. This is true in all cultures. Christianity, they say grace before a meal. This is because when you eat a meal, there is a tendency to indulge in the food. But if you think of God before eating the meal, then it stems this indulgence. You enjoy the meal without indulging in it. So now what he's saying is, he enumerates the different aspects of the yajna and then he equates it all to Brahman. He says everything is Brahman. The arpanam, offering is Brahman. The havi, the oblation, the ghee that you offer in it is Brahman. The agni, fire is Brahman. The person offering it is Brahman. The result of it is also Brahman. Then he says, if you are able to see Brahman in action, in every action that is performed, never mind what quality of the action it is. It could be a stupid action. It could be an intelligent action. It could be a perfect action. It could be an imperfect action. But if you are able to see that the power of Brahman behind all actions, then you will go to Brahman. Means, as you think, so you become. So, prayer or worship is not something to be done once a day or once a week or sometimes once a year. Prayer or worship is to be done constantly, consistently. Every moment of your life, if you remind yourself that everything that's happening around in the world is nothing but an expression or manifestation of Brahman, you're well on your path to self-realization. And the challenge is that. Our challenge is to remain focused on this splendor, this divine splendor that is splashed everywhere. And when you're focused on this splendor, then all the trash that comes along, which is part of the world, will not upset you. But today, not only are we upset by the trash, but we are contributing to it. We are adding to it, to the junk. So, he repeats this to drill it in, that everything is Brahman. So he keeps repeating. The word Brahman is repeated again and again so as to hit home. This is the principle behind advertising, isn't that so? Every time there's a commercial break, you see the same ad over and over and over again till you know every word, every visual, everything that comes. And then you get so brainwashed that the next time you go out to buy something, the brand name hits you. So you no longer ask for the generic product, you ask for the brand. It's the same thing that he's doing here. Everything is Brahman. And once you understand it, it lends a completely different flavor to your life. And then you continue acting, but your focus is not on the action, your focus is not on what's happening in the world, but that it sustains the world. Verse 25.
Daivameva pare yajñam yogina paryupasate brahmagnava pare yajñam yajñenaivopajoghati.
Some yogis, spiritual practitioners, perform sacrifice to the devas, gods alone. Others sacrifice by offering sacrifice itself into the fire of Brahman. Now these verses 25 to 30, deal with the 12 yajnas, an incredibly brilliant prescription for acting in the world and yet doing continuous, constant worship. If you don't follow these 12 yajnas, you find it is impossible. By the time you think of the action, the thought of God has gone. By the time you think of God, action has gone. Right? This is our experience. So therefore you get fed up and say, never mind God, let's focus on the action. And then once in a way your conscience pricks you and so you say, oh, I must pray. So once in a way you do some puja, once in a way you go to a temple or church or mosque, once in a way you go to a place of pilgrimage, but that's of no use. Why is it of no use? Because what you need to do is constant thinking, constant association. Why is it that we need to constantly think of Atman, Brahman? Because now our state is that we have constantly thought of body, mind and intellect so much that we have become the body, mind and intellect. As a result, when the pairs of opposites in the world affect the body, mind and intellect, which they must. You remember the example of the magnet and the iron. When the body, mind and intellect are affected, then you get affected, you suffer the traumas and trials and tribulations of the world unnecessarily because your real nature is not body, mind and intellect, it is Atman. So how do you correct the situation? The only way to correct the situation is to constantly think of Atman, do the same thing which you did with body, mind and intellect. Constantly think of Atman in and through the body and its perceptions and action, the mind and its feelings and emotions, the intellect and its thoughts and ideas. So the activities of the body, mind and intellect continue, but the focus of your attention shifts to God. That's easier said than done. So therefore what he does is, he prescribes these 12 yajnas. We've seen the basic ingredients of yajna is that there is an offering and there is a kindling, right? You remember that yajna, the havan, what do? You offer ahuti into the fire, and when ahuti is offered into the fire, there is the kindling of the fire shoots up. So these two things happen. In the ritual, You have to perform the ritual and only then are you reminded of God. And even then sometimes you're reminded. Otherwise nowadays people perform havan and their mind is still on material things. But what here in the Gita, Krishna and Vyasa ingeniously think of a method by which you can internalize the yajna. In other words, perform the yajna within yourself without having to actually go through this exercise of the havan. Particularly in our day and age in Delhi, the less smoke you create and pollution, fog you create, the better it is. So, internalize the yajna, for which he has given 12 yajnas. And the 12 yajnas are, we'll go through these 12 yajnas in today and tomorrow. Number 1 is a worldly goal. Worldly goal means one which is higher than your selfish, self-centered interest, but it is not the absolute goal of self-realization. So that's what he's saying here. The first yajna is this. Second, spiritual goal. Once you fix higher and higher ideals and you achieve those ideals, you understand the futility of a worldly ideal and you shift your focus to the absolute. You're no longer content with what the world has to offer and you shift to the absolute ideal of self-realization. This is a true, mature individual. The third is sense perception. Fourth, sense control. I'll explain these as we go along. 5, self-restraint. 6, wealth. 7, penance. 8, yoga. 9, self-knowledge. 10, breath. 11, internal vigor. 12, external dynamism. So in this verse he is giving out 2. The 2 are yajna number 1. He says some yogis, a yogi is one who's on the path of yoga or union with Atman. Some yogis perform sacrifice to devas, gods. When he uses the word deva, God in plural, it means limited ideal, not the absolute ideal. The problem with us is there is that one God, one Brahman, one Atman. But because it is so subtle and attributeless, it becomes difficult for the average person to rise to appreciate the presence of that one ideal. So what they did ingeniously is gave us limited ideals which are still beyond our selfish interests but help us to get there. So devas, the gods, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Hanuman, etc. were given as limited interim goals. So these are limited ideals, worldly ideals. So in this worldly ideal, what happens is the offering is your talent, the kindling is profit, well-being of the unit. The second is a spiritual goal, where you fix Brahman as the ideal. In that, the offering that you put in is sacrifice. And the kindling is Brahman. What happens is, as you fix higher and higher ideals, initially, some of your actions are selfish, some are unselfish, some are sacrificial. But as you fix higher and higher ideals, you find the bulk of your action shifts to sacrificial actions. And in the end, you're left with only sacrifice. So when you're working for the goal of self-realization, you are performing only sacrificial actions. That is, you're working towards the goal towards your spiritual evolution, Atmanaha Mokshartham, or Jagat Hitaya, or for the welfare of the world. You're not interested in anything selfish. So towards the end, among all the sacrificial actions that you're performing, you're left with only one sacrificial action, and that desire is to get to the state of realization. When you give that up also, that last thought, the last desire, when you offer that, then what is kindled is the state of realization. So that's what he's saying here. The second yajna is the absolute ideal. Verse 26.
श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति.
Others offer ear and other sense organs as sacrifice in the fires of self-control. Others, anye, offer sound and other sense objects as sacrifice in the fires of the sense organs. So now, yajna number 3 is sense perception, where the offering is sound, etc. And the kindling is perception. For this, you need to take a look at this diagram. In our life, what happens is, stimuli from the world enter us through the 5 sense organs. So you have sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Entering through the 5 their corresponding sense organs. So right now, as you're sitting here, color and form are entering your eye and reaching the sense center in the mind. So also sound impacts on your ear, on your tympanum, and this stimulus is carried to the sense center in the mind. It is only when the registration of the perception takes place in the mind that you actually see and hear. Now that you've been here for quite a long time, what happens is the mind drifts into other thoughts. Right? You might say, how do you know? You come here and see, watch the fun. When a person is following you, see a certain alertness on the face. That's why we ask for light in the audience. And then suddenly you get this glazed look in your eyes, which means the mind has gone. So when the mind drifts away to some other thought, the color and form is impacting on your eye, and that stimulus is being carried to the sense center in your mind. The sound is reaching your ear and it reaches the sense center in your mind. But because the mind is busy elsewhere, not a word enters your system. So the perception is not complete. What he's saying here is, when the sound, etc., it's beautifully put. When the stimulus reaches the sense center in your mind and the sound dies away, then hearing is kindled. Same thing with color and form. When you see, the stimulus enters the eye and is carried to the sense center in the mind. When that stimulus dies down, is offered, the perception of sight is kindled. As this is happening, you remind yourself that it is Brahman that enables me to see, hear, taste, touch and feel. In the simple thing of sense perception, which is happening all the time, every minute of your waking hour, some stimulus or the other is entering your system. And therefore you have a wonderful opportunity of worshipping 24/7. But we let go of this opportunity, we let go of this incredible opportunity by shifting the focus of our attention to what we see, hear, smell, taste and touch, and we've lost it. And then when we lose it, and you get entangled in the world and get disturbed in the world and get agitated in the world, then what you have to do is you have to go to Kailash, Manas Sarovar, Amarnath, here, there and everywhere on pilgrimage to regain that inspiration. When sitting here in the heart of Delhi, you can get inspired by Brahman. Not only do you get inspired by Brahman, but then you get unaffected by the pairs of opposites. So suppose when you are hearing, you're clued into what you hear, that which enables you to hear and not what you hear. The harsher the words that come to you, the greater is the reminder of Brahman. Right? There are people who have irritable spouses. So suppose you belong to the fortunate category where you have a spouse, a husband or wife who is extremely irritable and the drop of a hat throws a tantrum, gets angry. Consider yourself lucky. You know why? Because the harsher the language and the louder the words that are thrown at you, the greater is the reminder of Brahman. Right? You haven't got it. When somebody gets angry with you and shouts at you, instead of shouting back, consider it a God-given opportunity to remind yourself of God. Then you are at peace and you are able to do whatever correct action that is required. Otherwise, every time a dog barks at you, it is not necessary for you to bark back. It's difficult in the beginning, but once you get used to it, it's a fabulous thing. That's why in India we're such a noisy clan. When there is a wedding, we create noise. When there is a birth, we create noise. We're waiting for opportunities to create noise. So instead of sitting and complaining about noise pollution, enjoy the reminders of Brahman. The fourth yajna is sense control. See, in the earlier one, in the third yajna, you're not exercising any control. Whatever is happening, you simply take it in and remind yourself of God. But here, in the fourth one, there is sense control. Means what is being offered is hearing, etc. Hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching. And what is kindled is sense control. With what do you exercise sense control? Sorry? Intellect. So the intellect comes into being and controls the sense contact. So this is a variation, this is an improvement upon just sense perception. So the offering is hearing, etc. What is kindled is sense control, restraint. When the stimuli enter you, up to the stage where the mind registers the perception, it's okay, fine. But what we do is, particularly whether it's a pleasant or unpleasant experience, the mind relives the experience after the sense contact has ceased. And when you relive that experience, you are violating sense control, and it is this reliving. Remember on the first day we said chewing the cud, like cattle chew the cud, like that you bring up the experiences again after the experience is over in your mind and keep thinking about it. This thinking about it creates one more desire in your system. Like or dislike is added to your system. So when this like or dislike is added to your system, you are violating sense control. Like just now. What you heard was an example of violation of self-control. So, as long as you are mentally reliving an experience, there is no enjoyment, there is only mental indulgence. And when you are reliving a past experience, your mind is not there with the present experience. So the present experience you are not enjoying. So therefore, when he recommends sense control, he is not taking away your enjoyment, he is giving it back to you. The enjoyment that you have already lost, he is giving back to you through sense control. In this, he uses the plural agnishu, because there are 5 distinct avenues of control through the eye, ear, nose, tongue and skin. Which means, see, many of us, it's not as if we have completely lost control. We have control in 1 or 2 areas and we have lack of control in the other aspects. So that's why a person of sense control, when you say you are a controlled person, you need to exercise control in all the 5 avenues. It's not enough to be controlled only in one. That's why he uses the word Agnishu, plural. So the third and the fourth yajnas are yajna of sense perception, yajna of sense control. We'll take one more verse before we end, verse 27.
सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ